Okay.
This is MC. MC. Agnes. Diane. Azza. When you were a child, there was like a pattern that you were expressing in your life. For example, there's an introvert, there's an extrovert, there's a kid that tries real hard to do something, and for me, for example, when I was a little baby, I couldn't walk till really late, my mother told me. And having a Russian background, they bring in a shaman to see what's wrong with the child and what can be done. So my mother was worried about me. I couldn't walk, and she couldn't teach me to walk. And then this really old Russian lady comes, and she sat, had a cup of tea, and was watching me. And then she told my mother, leave her alone, you'll never teach her to walk. One day, she'll get up and she'll start running, and that'll be her pattern. And that's been my pattern. It's like, you know, I'm crawling and I'm crawling and I'm crawling and crawling. And for me, it's like gathering knowledge, gathering information, gathering within myself, and then bang, you know, I just take off and I start running. And that's been my pattern in life. So think about that. MC, what's your pattern? Because I know MC's pattern.
Mine is very simple. Whenever I have an idea, I know that I can obtain that idea by just going forward slowly. It's like the story, the little engine that could. I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. So it's basically very slow, but very determined. So no one basically can interfere with the goal that I have in mind. I just keep chugging towards it.
And that's been your life pattern since you were a child?
And I knew it as a child.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have anything nearly that clear. I'm just trying to think about it. I just know that as a child, I could never have or do anything I wanted to do. And I always felt I was born into the wrong family. And even as a child, we don't know the word creative, but I knew I wanted to be a singer or a dancer or a musician or something along these lines. But I was in this little town that was sort of, what shall we say, culturally deprived. So I sort of had a pattern for a long time that no matter what I wanted to do, I couldn't do it because there was no opportunity for me to do it. So I think I sort of went inward because I remember my grade 1 teacher telling my mother, just leave her alone, let her do her own thing, let her do it quietly, and she'll be okay. So I have a tendency to do that to this day. I'm a loner when I'm making plans, and once I decide to do something, don't get in my way, because I'm going to do it.
Cool, that's great. Because a lot of children now, you know, they have to be a certain way, don't they? They have to have it, well, you've got to do it this way and that way, and there's a step A and step B, and maybe their nature, not maybe, but definitely their nature is totally different, because everybody's fingerprint's totally different.
I think we were all allowed to grow ourselves up more alone, like grow ourselves up.
Yeah.
Children today.
Yeah, then children today,
I think
yeah.
so. I don't know. What about you?
I walked at 9 months. My parents said no to everything I wanted to do. And I thought I saw that. So I would sort of become obsessed with it. I know you're shocked to hear that. I get obsessed with it. And when I get obsessed with something that I want to do, it's not something that I want to have, it's something that I want to do. I dream about it and I think about it in my sleep. And I solve the problem so that I can do what I want to do in my sleep. So my pattern has been to want to do something and overcome the barriers in the most wonderfully sweet and kind way that I can. And I married two people who said no to everything. But, you know, when I was
Like your
growing,
family.
Yeah.
so when I was growing up, for example, I'll tell you quickly, for example, I wanted to play tennis when I was in 7th grade. I wanted to play the French horn in 7th grade. I wanted to play a musical instrument, I wanted to play tennis. My father said, no, we don't have the money. I said, it doesn't cost any money. No. So rather than argue with him, because that was not a good thing, because I'm a kind child, I would say, well, I mean, I don't know if I articulated it at the time. I look back and realize, I would say, well, it's because you don't have the money. Well, look, it doesn't cost money. It doesn't cost any money. I can go and take a musical instrument at school and there's no money. Well, it's gonna be after school and I can't get you to school. And the bus doesn't take you after school. I have a ride. So I have a ride that doesn't cost any money. And so I worked on him for 6 weeks and finally said, okay. So I played French horn. But the tennis, I said, I'm gonna play tennis, and he said, no. I said, it doesn't cost any money. I just have to buy a racket. And he said, we don't have any money to buy a racket. They had wooden rackets in those days. They had light bulbs, but wooden rackets. And
Light bulbs and wooden
but
rackets.
they had electricity, but we had wooden rackets, and I saw S&H green stamps all over the house. And if you're from the U.S., you know about those green stamps. And it cost 7 books, which was $7, to buy a tennis racket. And I said, can I buy it? Is the only reason I can't play tennis is because I can't buy a racket? He said, yes. I said, if I can buy a racket, or I can borrow a racket, can I play? And he said, yes. And so I used S&H green stamps. So I think my pattern is, I want something, usually people tell me no. All right, that's my expectation, so that's probably what I see.
You know what I'm hearing?
Wait, one more thing, and so let me just finish this thought, I'm eager to hear what you have to say. So what happens then is I am obsessed with what are the barriers in my sleep and during the day, and I work it out. And then by the time I've worked it all out, watch out, because I'm doing it.
What I was gonna say, actually, we're not too different, because I just went
I know.
quietly into my corner.
I know, I thought that.
And did it, you know, but I think we were given a gift. We were really given a
Great
gift.
transition.
Because
Yeah.
we were obstacles, from the time we were little, somebody said, here's an obstacle, and we said, okay, how am I gonna get around this obstacle? And I am going to get around this obstacle. So at a very early age, that was a beautiful gift.
It was, and that's how I think I was successful in my career in higher education, because it's all about doing more with less. It's all about how to make things happen in spite of legal, statewide issues, legal issues, lack of money, human resources who really don't want change. And so that's why I was good at what I did, because I'd find a way. And I also think that my style, because my father was a tough man, my mom and dad were, you know, they were the authority. I was not gonna fight with them about it, because I would lose the whole thing somewhere. I knew that. I didn't want to make them mad. So that was the other thing I learned about negotiation and networking. So I agree with you. It was a gift. Marrying 2 guys who didn't want me to, that was not the gift. That was a whole nother gift. Marrying 2 men who said
That was for your benefit to
understand
yeah.
and choose not to do that again.
Understand it.
Scratch the stuff.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
That's right.
To be able to understand the gift that you have.
You know, that I often have asked myself the question, like, why did you choose these parents? And it's only recently I came up with this answer. That was the one gift that I had, is that I didn't have all the things I wanted. If I had them right away, I
Then
may
what?
not have, yeah. I
Then
wouldn't
you
have developed
develop
all
all
the character, the determination, and whatever it is that we have to do to make it happen.
I didn't have parents that said no. My parents were supportive. I would get an idea, they'd be supportive, they wouldn't finance it. because I started working when I was probably 11 years, well, I know I was 11 years old babysitting. So I financed all my own ideas. But they were there being supportive, so it wasn't a parent that said no.
Yeah.
But
But the
it's
finance from my
but
parents was.
I think
was
the
real
three
reason.
of us have the same core personality, which is determination.
Mhm.
So
I'm a
if
Taurus.
you had a parent that said no, or you had a parent that said, fine, go towards it, you'd have, you still have that determination, and that's something inside yourself.
Do you think it's something you're born with?
I think it's something you're
Aspect
born
of
with.
Character?
Yeah, yeah.
It seems to be, doesn't it? It seems to be a thing that you're born with. You know, it's like when life is pushing against what your life force wants to express, you know, then you build this way of dealing with it.
Exactly, build a way of dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had
Exactly.
siblings who were not well. I had an older sister and younger brother who were not well. And I was like the Ritalin child before Ritalin was in. I was like the hyperactive child.
High energy.
High energy, very, very healthy, and so the focus, I think, was really on those two sickly children. And then, then there was Diane, who was wanting to do everything when these kids couldn't do anything, really couldn't do a lot. That's an overstatement, but, so I think that had an impact on my pattern as well.
So that's like from birth. That's the pattern that you've got. So when you get a roadblock, when you're this is your goal, and going towards a goal, always there's blockages, you know, that stop you. How do you deal with those blocks now?
I'll tell you what I do when I see that there's going to be a block, or I realize that there is some sort of barrier. What I do is not worry about it at the moment. If I can't find a solution like instantaneously, I let it sit. Because I'm always of the belief that something will give, and I'll get some sort of message, or I'll get some sort of idea to solve that problem in another way. So I wait a little bit. I have a little more patience with that now. And that's happening about moving here. I have some challenges about moving here, and I don't know the solution to them. And so instead of beating myself up about it or worrying about it, I just sort of let it sit, because it will come to
Okay,
me. The
so-
solution will come to me.
All right.
I sort of go the opposite in a way. I will think about it for a while, I'll worry, and I think, oh, I can't decide. Hold your nose, close your eyes, and jump. That's what I do.
Uh-huh,
Like I'm on the high board, like a
uh-huh.
little kid. And if it really, it's gonna be hard, I don't think I can do it, that's what I do. I actually do this, and then I
Yeah.
jump, and then I'm there. And then I know I'm a survivor, so I'll be fine. But I need that little push, and I have to close my eyes and hold my nose.
But see, I think you're talking about, you're
Right.
talking about a little bit different barrier than I'm talking about. You're talking about an internal fear.
But
That
barriers
dealing
are all
with it.
different ways,
Yeah.
all different things.
Yeah, it could
Oh,
be
I
something
see.
somebody
Same,
said I
same,
don't
same.
have permission to do.
Oh, I see.
And I have to decide, am I gonna go past
Forward.
that, forward, in spite of what all of the results
Oh,
are
I
going to
see.
be?
Okay.
And, I mean, it's black or white, so that's what I
Hold
do.
your nose and jump.
And a couple of big decisions in my life have been made that way. And looking back on them, I'm so glad I did them. But I just seem to need that push off the board. What about you?
Well, I had read that you have a 50-50 chance of making the right decision. And the type of person that does it impetuously, the type of person that does all the studies and make sure everything is in order, those two types of people makes the decision 50% of the time correctly. So I thought, hell, I got a 50-50 chance, go for it. So I don't really worry about it a lot. I figured, okay, this is the knowledge that I have at this particular point. This is the decision, so I keep going forward. Or backwards, or it's forward to me. So if it's a wrong decision, that's just a little sidetrack, you can make another decision to put it back in the,
In your,
in the
in
core.
line, yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's wonderful.
learning that decision-making, there is basically no right answer. And no matter if you do all of the studies or not, you keep on moving forward. The only really wrong decision is not making a decision.
And see, I go with my gut.
Oh, yeah.
I go with my gut,
That's
it's every
everything you
single
go with.
thing, I test myself
Yeah.
every single time, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
And if I don't know what I'm feeling, or if I have some concern about it, I let it sit for a bit.
For me, I instantly know what I'm going to do, and then what I really like doing is asking people that have already been there, you know, gone through that,
Yeah.
because I love to hear other wise people's opinions of things, you know, and if there's a resistance in me, I love to look at what that resistance is, where it comes from, how does it manifest, what's it doing in my life, and then the more I look at it, the more it dissolves and becomes like just a ghost. And I end up doing what I knew I was going to do in the first place.
But was it a gut reaction?
Yeah, it's an instant, I know. I already know.
You know, I just have an example of this. Before I moved here, I was living and working in West Africa. And when I was first invited to do the job, everything in here said no. But for a year, my mind kept telling me all the reasons why it would be good. So I went, and it wasn't good. And so that has been really a good example for me. It was, if I had just
Yes.
listened to this,
Yeah.
and you know, when I go into my studio to work, I go like this to my left brain and go, quiet, quiet, quiet. Just listen
Oh,
to
that's good.
And I think it's a good lesson for life,
It
period.
really is. I had a gallery, and of course I had to hire people. And I always normally I hired them on instinct. Okay, you have to do the interview, but I know I'm gonna hire you.
Yeah.
One time I thought, well, you know, you should really do it by giving them a computer test, spelling tests. They should have a degree in
Shoulds.
art, shoulds. I ended up firing the only person that I hired that had an art degree in history and was a computer expert. The ones that had one that had her doctorate in zoology, and I can't remember what the other one was, I think she was an accountant. But instinctively, I knew that they would be appropriate. The one, when I tried to do it logically, it didn't work.
That's learning to trust yourself,
Yeah.
really, isn't it? I think the older we
But,
get,
yeah.
the more we learn to
Yes,
Yeah.
trust
trust
our instinct.
us. Yeah.
But I also think, may I also?
You may think, yes.
Thank you. I'm always asking Aza. I agree that when you get older, it just gets easier. However, some of the decisions you have to make when you're older, you can't necessarily correct. So if you make that mistake, and
Well, that
you make that mistake, and so
finances.
I think that some of the decisions are easy, but if these are like lifelong changes, something where you're really gonna change your life, I think they're harder now. For me, it is, it's harder now because I don't know how much time I have left. I don't know totally what my resources are, I think I know.
Yeah.
But in this economy, who knows
Who
what will
knows?
happen with the resources?
Mhm.
So I think the bigger decisions that are life-changing, like moving to San Miguel, is a harder decision for me than any decisions.
But that's your
I've ever
head
made.
talking.
My head who says lots of things. Yeah, you're right. But that head is interfering.
Yeah.
But this, it can change this too. It can change your sense of calm. All the stuff
Mhm.
that's going on in here.
I think anyway, when you do something, you know, a life-changing jump, you're going to be panicking, you know? I think panic's, you know, oh my God, it's a normal thing. But it doesn't, you know, it shouldn't stop you. You know anyway. Because that panic type thing comes from the brain. Yeah, I shouldn't, I must, what if and what if not, and it's a brain thing. And which does this dance, with your emotions. And this, oh my God, is an emotional thing. Compared to a gut instinct that comes into your sensing. You sense it in your body. And sensing and emotional feelings are very, very different energies.
I often used to think I was nervous about something, and one day it hit me, I was excited. And I thought, you're not nervous, you're excited. What a good life. No, and then
That's good.
and then I was able to do it more. I said, oh, this is exciting.
Yeah.
I still felt nervous, but this is exciting.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Sounds to me like way back when, your excitement was labelled as something negative. So you interpret it
And sort of pull in.
as a negative, yeah.
That's possible.
What question did you want to ask?
Well, I have been thinking a lot because people have been asking me this question. What would you say is the happiest, I'll use that word, but we could use other words, period of your life, looking back now? This could be a matter of a year, it could be a decade or a period, but in the overall, all the decades of our lives, when would you say you are most at ease with where you are? You're your own person and you feel good. That's my question.
Okay, for me, now,
Why?
because I've just gotten off my case, I've gotten off my case and gotten on with myself. I shouldn't, I mustn't, I must. That's good, that's bad, oh, how could you do that? Maybe you're not this enough, or enough of this, or big enough, or small enough, or, I've gotten off my case.
You're comfortable with who you are.
Now it's like, yes, absolutely. Now I really enjoy being me. I enjoy it. Before, it's what I love doing is projects. I love doing projects. I love the doing of life, making something, but not physically like a statue or that. Contributing, I love to contribute. Like, for example, what I'm doing right now. I want women's wisdom out there. I want to do a video on this, and I want to do show people this, and and I'm really good at getting amazing information and putting it out in the world. And before it was like this voice, oh, Wazza, who do you think you are? Oh, maybe that's people won't like it, or maybe you'll hurt somebody, or maybe this and maybe that. Now it's like I got off my case. And now I'm just doing it, and it turns me on. My doing of life turns me on. I love to contribute, and I love to make bridges. I love building bridges between this culture and that reality and that one, and this left brain and right brain, and, making a holistic, energetic force in life,
I felt like I've not created bridges between cultures of foreign countries or countries. But as you were talking, I'm thinking, I want it to be about me. I'm like,
You want life to be about you? Is that what
I
you
want
said?
my life to be about me. I'm really selfish, I think.
well, that's about me. What I just said is about me.
But I think with when I was in my career, when I was in my career and I was climbing that ladder, I was the happiest. Now, hold that thought. I was the happiest. I didn't worry about, I didn't second guess myself. I just soared in that career. And I was giving. I was service, it was a service. You know, higher education is, it's like school is an honorable teaching. I taught, even though I wasn't teaching in the classroom after many years, an administrator teaches. And it is an honorable profession. And so you give. And you give to people and help them become who they are by providing them with courses and helping and talking to them and lifting them up. Honestly, you lift them up and you help them do things they never thought they could ever do. And you do that when you're a teacher, and you do that when you're an administrator, not only for students but for your colleagues. And so one of my most, so achievement is one of my, it's a part of my soul, achieving. And so I was really, really, really happy and was well received and was good at what I did.
That's great.
Now, and then when I got to the top, I said, yeah, you've grown as an administrator, as a teacher, as a college president, you've grown. But have you grown personally as an individual? Have you yourself personally grown? I don't think so. Because I was like, and some men are in the US, I was my career. I was the president. I wasn't much of anything else. I was the president. I lived and breathed it. So now, I don't worry so much about what, well, it's chemical and the brain changes. I don't worry so much about what people think of me anymore. I just want to know what I want to do. That's my biggest challenge. I have to, it's sort of finding more and more out about myself as an individual.
So your best period was when you were working.
Right, but I'm coming back to another best period, which is totally different from that other one. Because it's more personal, it's about me. I don't want to go out and service people. I don't want to tell people about what I think is.
This is your third stage, the Crohn stage of your life, which is about finding out who you are.
Yeah.
And you couldn't have come to a better place than San Miguel to do that,
And
really.
I think, I mean, it's about, you know, it's like when I quit working, I'm doing a monologue, so I'll hurry here. When I quit working, I saw that, you know, I said, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And I had to go in a room, shut the door, turn out the lights, and sit there and think, honestly. Because I found out that everything I wanted to do was to somebody else's drum. And I said, wait a minute, no, peel that back. What is it? What is it? What is it? And I'm still doing that. And so I like art. I'm trying to find out what feeds my soul and moving in that direction.
That's great.
Mine's very simple. It's when I grew up, which means 35 to 45, about that type. Because in that particular decade, I designed a house and built it, our home on the lake. Which
Ditto.
good for you, I love that, absolutely loved it. The other thing I did is I opened up my business, my gallery, and did that for 18 years. So it was like the ideas that I had stirring inside me, I now felt that I was grown up and I could do and did them.
That was 35 to 45.
Yeah, I'd say 35 to
Yeah.
45. I was no longer, I was married very young, as I know somebody else in this room also was married very young.
Me too.
All of us.
Yeah.
So I went from the family to the father image of the husband, who's much older than me, 3 years. But I thought of him as the ultimate in
Yeah.
decision making. Suddenly, I don't have to do that anymore. So that was wonderful. It was like a burst of freedom of recognizing myself as an adult woman.
So it was coming into your own power.
Coming into my own power, and I haven't given up. And I always say I'm very happy. Happiest, I love those projects. But I always feel that I have a lot of joy and happiness in life. No matter if there's a little cancer here or there, I don't mean physically, I mean
Conceptual.
conceptual, thank you. But I've always been very lucky, very, very lucky.
Well, I realized listening to answer my own question, I've changed it a little bit because I have two. And because to me, that early 40s, and I think early 40s is a very important time in a woman's life.
Yeah.
And I was married very young and finished my children by the time I was 30. So that was one of the,
30.
I had all my children by the time I was 30.
Oh, you had your children.
I didn't start then, I finished at 30.
Good, great. Okay.
And so
You
that
finished breeding. She was 4.
finished breeding.
Breeding.
So that was one of my big decisions to go back to school full-time. And I held my nose then, and I went down and signed up and came home and told my husband I'm going back to school full-time. And it was a very big decision in my life. And then I opened a gallery. And my whole life as an artist began. And that was an extremely wonderful, wonderful time. And I remember being at a workshop in an ashram that I belonged to every week. I'd go to this yoga retreat. And she was asking me something, and I said, "You don't understand." I said, "I am my art. My art is me." And she said, "That's too bad." I never understood that till now. I had replaced who I was with my work, and I let my art speak for me for a good portion of my life. And to this day, I gave a talk not too long ago, and I was working in clay for 25 years, and I said, all those years I thought I was forming the clay, and the clay was forming me.
Oh, that's a great
And that's
concept.
exactly what was happening, but
Wow,
what
that's
a beautiful marriage. Me-
Right.
I used to say there's just me and the pots talking.
yeah.
So that was a period of formation that I wanted as a child probably, that I didn't have.
yeah.
And I guess I would never want to lose that period of time. And I had a gallery for 25 years. But that whole period of where my whole life just went into finally creating something besides children and a home and all that, it was a wonderful period. And the rest is now. Now, I wanted to be a hippie, I was born in the wrong time. I wanted to be a flapper, I was born in the wrong time. I'm now a crone, and I'm in my right body. And I'm in the right place to be a crone. And I have never been really, I think, as happy as I am in this last 10 years here. And I've been in San Miguel 15 years now.
Wow.
And the last 10 have been so happy because, just like you said, I'm getting to know who I am.
For me, as much as I'm happy about the life choices I've made because of my pattern, I do think that there's a kernel there that's a weakness that I haven't figured out and haven't worked out.
Only because you haven't experienced it. I had a
Right.
42-year marriage
So did I.
that was very happy, that decisions were always made together. It's much easier to make your own decisions.
Oh, I know.
You know, that's the next question that I'm coming to. What's a common negative pattern that keeps coming up in your life, that you see in yourself?
Nothing. Are you kidding?
We're so
Well, I can say that about.
And how do you deal with it?
Well, I don't know. I don't know the answer. If I knew the answer, I would be sitting talking to you.
How have you been dealing with it that didn't work? How about that?
Say again?
How have you been dealing with this negative pattern that hasn't worked?
I'm writing about it. I'm writing.
And that's working?
Well, it is working in some regard, but it's a process.
How have you been dealing with it that didn't work?
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay. Do you, Agnes?
I'm
What's
not
the
sure if I can
negative-
answer that. Okay, one of the things I have to push through all the time is I really don't like being up in front of an audience speaking. And I think I used to do presentations of my work for years, but I was behind a slide projector.